Okay, welcome, hello, and welcome to the RazorwireReviews Back to the Future audio commentary as part of the RazorwireReviews audio commentary series, I hope. Now, I tried to do this a few nights ago, failed miserably because my cat loves to just moan and moan and moan. So I've put her out now, the window is open, and it's around the time that kids outside are going to start jumping up and down on that fucking trampoline outside, and so you're going to hear a lot of kid noise probably. You're going to hear the cat coming in and moaning. So I apologize in advance for all the distractions that will likely pop into this recording. I have tried my best. I have two microphones recording at the same time right now. And I think I just need to bite the bullet and just do this and get on with it. But thank you to everyone who voted. I think it was in October of last year. I put out a video asking if people would be interested in the audio commentary idea. People were, so I put out a vote, and the winner by a landslide was, of course, Back to the Future from 1985, directed by Robert Zemeckis, and we'll get into all that during the film. And yeah, if you have the copy with you and you want to play along and kind of watch this, or listen to this rather, while you're watching the film, then I would have it synced up to pretty much just 1 second after the Universal logo at the beginning of the film, the old Universal logo. As soon as it goes to black, pause it there. And if you want to be real specific, I've got up here 15 seconds and 13 frames into the Blu-ray. And if you're not watching this on Blu-ray, what you've been doing with your life, seriously, get this film on Blu-ray, it's amazing. And so what I'm going to do is count you down, 3, 2, 1, and then on go, that's when you go. So 3, 2, 1, go, and then play, and then we'll just get right into it. So, are you ready? I hope you are. 3, 2, 1, go. And of course there was a delay on my Blu-ray there for about half a second. But anyway, Steven Spielberg Presents, here we go. The title on the screen. I always love this font, which is a really random thing, but it's a really pleasing visual font. I like fonts like this, just white, simple. And there we have the title. A lot more elaborate with the gradient effect there and the flash across the kind of beveling, and I love that logo. It's just a great logo with the arrow and everything. Now this shot here, this is obviously a really complicated shot for the guys who made this film. All the clocks read 7:53, and they're all 25 minutes slow, except for one clock, and it's on the floor next to the case of plutonium, and it reads 8:20. That clock there, right there, that is kind of a tribute to the film Safety Last from 1923, starring Harold Lloyd, where he hangs off a clock of the edge of a building. It's a great silent film, and it also foreshadows the events at the end of the film with Doc and the clock. And I'm sure you've seen this film before. If you haven't, what are you doing? And all these things like this, the Brown Mansion destroyed. I mean, this opening shot, which is all one take, sets up so much. You know, about the story without ever saying anything, you know, and the more you watch it, the more you see things. There's the video camera that comes into play later on, and you see that Doc's living, you know, very, well, not in the most glamorous way, we'll say that. And you got all these clocks moving. Not all of them worked. Some of them were made to look like they worked, like the pendulum thing there. They had, again, all these things that kind of synced up and had to work at the same time, and it's a very impressive shot. You know, and here you got the TV thing that kind of mentions the plutonium theft. So again, it all links together, and I just love this opening shot. It's one of my favorite openings to a film, and while we're on the subject, it is in fact one of my favorite films of all time. It's in my top 5 favorites. Yeah, I just adore it basically, and I have for my whole life, and I'll get into that later on, but I just want to talk more about this shot. They didn't have a real toaster there. They had guys underneath the table with smoke pellets to make it look like the toast was actually being burnt as you were watching it. This can here, they practiced this whole little, they built this dog food machine, but the brand of dog food they were using they couldn't use the day before filming, so they had to change the brand of dog food. And this brand of dog food didn't really flop out the way they wanted it, like this kind of comical, you know, straight into the dog bowl. So they had to kind of blowtorch the bottom of this tin to make sure that it flopped out like that, so it was kind of heated up. And I believe this is all one shot, and they just added, Robert Zemeckis just added that insert in so you could see the dog food hit the bowl. And then you got Marty coming in here, getting the key from under the, or dropping the key underneath the mat. And that's the end of the great one shot at the beginning of the film. And you know, I didn't really obviously appreciate this when I was a kid, but you know, later on when I was probably 16, 17, I was like, wow, this is a great opening shot. And there's the plutonium right there as well. CRM 114. See that? That is a Stanley Kubrick reference. I believe that's shown in Doctor Strangelove, and there's like a 114 jar or something in Clockwork Orange. That's a little Stanley Kubrick reference there, from Zemeckis. Oh no, apparently it's Steven Spielberg. My notes are telling me that who wanted to add in that little nod to Stanley Kubrick. Of course, was directed by Robert Zemeckis. The story was from Zemeckis and Bob Gale, I'm pretty sure, and Steven Spielberg was very instrumental in producing this film and getting it made. And now we've got this great introduction to Marty's character, with the little guitar there, and we don't see his face until the money shot coming up, and the size of this speaker is just unbelievable. It's just so funny that Doc would just be building this huge thing for no reason, really. Love that shot with the plectrum, and bam, gets blown back. I always loved that little touch with all the books falling on top of Marty. I just noticed then, when he cuts closer, the debris is quite different, in a different arrangement. And there we go, first shot of Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. And there were quite a few people considered to be the actor for Marty throughout the kind of pre-production process, which is quite interesting, I think. I mean, this film altogether, was rejected 40 times before it was greenlit. 40 times before the studio said, okay, let's make this film. The script was apparently not good enough for the studio, which is crazy. Robert Zemeckis was trying to sell the idea of the film. He tried to get it done with Disney. They turned it down because they thought that the story of a mother falling in love with her son was a bit too risque for a film under the Disney banner. But I mean, apparently Disney was the only company to think that the first was risque. All other companies said it wasn't risque enough compared to other teen comedies like Fast Times at Richmond High from 1982 or Revenge of the Nerds, etc. And I do have a bunch of trivia here from IMDb I'm reading off. I also have other things that I've kind of noted down. And again, I love this introduction of Doc's character in a way through the phone. Just the fact that he set all his clocks exactly 25 minutes slow, and it's just a great wacky kind of introduction. And you got the first little, Doc, are you telling me that this, I just love all this stuff. And then of course we got Power of Love kicking in. It's actually kind of a bit of a myth that Michael J. Fox had to learn to skateboard for this film. He had actually was a pretty good skateboarder before. He rode skateboards when he was in high school. But Per Wallinder acted as a skateboarding double for the complex scenes. And so yeah, that's quite interesting. But for a lot, you could see it so. Oh my God, you can see it so clearly on the Blu-ray now. That was not Michael J. Fox. Wow. The days of Blu-ray. See, that's interesting. The man driving the Jeep that Marty hangs onto is the stunt coordinator Walter Scott. And we got a first look at Hill Valley, and I love that set as well. It's just I love that. I love that the guy who's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And when I was a kid growing up, all of us would try and do that with cars and stuff. My mate Ben, back in Larkhill when I lived in England, he used to try and get his dad to let him hold on to the back of his car while he was on his rollerblades. And now we got the introduction of Jennifer, Marty's girlfriend, and the introduction also of Strickland. I love this scene. It's a great scene. The guy who plays Strickland is just perfect in the role. I just love his smugness of it, handing her the tardy slip, and and Marty just acting like a proper geezer, just like, well, yes sir, when Marty left the garage earlier, Bob Gale, the guy who co-wrote the film, mentioned in the commentary actually that the garage was actually a flat that was put next to a Burger King restaurant, and as part of their agreement with Burger King, which you can see in that opening shot, the studio wasn't given any money from the restaurant for their cameo, but Burger King did allow them to film their scenes for free and allowed them to park there. Nose to nose, I'm sure that Michael J. Fox got a whiff of his breath there. And now the audition scene, the band audition scene, and that guy who holds up the megaphone there, rather, is Huey Lewis, of Huey Lewis and the News, the band that produced The Power of Love and Back in Time from the end of the film. So yeah, it's interesting that he just looks like such a you know, such a, what's the word? See, this is the thing with recording full-length commentaries. I can't think of the word at all. I know Michael J. Fox could, he could play guitar quite well. I know there's some doubles in the scene at the end. But yeah, Huey Lewis there with the glasses, he just seems so bookish. There you go, there's a word. He doesn't seem like a guy who would sing, you know, that's the power of love. I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. One of the best lines of the film. You know, yeah, it's just great. I just love that little cameo, and I always knew about it for some reason as well. I think I had a VHS box set which had a fourth one that was like Back to the Future Part 4, the making of or something, and I was like, Back to the Future Part, oh, it's a making of. Got kind of disappointed. Oh, the license plate behind them there says For Mary, if you can spot that. I was kind of a bit late to point it out, but it's a tribute to Mary T. Radford, the personal assistant to second unit director Frank Marshall. I can't believe Marty checks out their asses there. That's ridiculous. And she just kind of doesn't really take too much notice of it. Yeah, I just love looking at all the background stuff. You know, I've seen this film so many times. I can kind of focus on other things, especially now with the Blu-ray with everything so clear. You can see the woman there with the Save the Clock Tower kind of campaign set up behind them. And I just love that this is a whole, you know, backlot set at Universal. It feels so real, and it feels so homely at the same time. You know, it feels like it's a small kind of close-knit American kind of community. I really like it, and of course the clock tower there, which is a character into itself for the whole trilogy, the whole series, really. Now, Claudia Wells here, who plays Jennifer, she actually dropped out for a while. She was going to play Jennifer, then she dropped out due to scheduling conflicts, and Melora Hardin was briefly recast, but she had to be replaced when it was discovered she was taller than Michael J. Fox, and so I guess they figured it out with Claudia Wells to come back and do the film. In early drafts of the script, Marty's girlfriend's name is Susie Parker. And also the backlot that's used as the town of Hill Valley is seen in the first episode of The Twilight Zone, Where Is Everybody from 1959. And if you really, really want to know where that clock tower is now, I can tell you exactly where it is. It can be found at the coordinates 34.141426, dash 118.349783, and you can see exactly where it is. You can go on Google Street View and see where it is on the Universal backlot right now. Looks a little different, looks bare, it's just like grass, and the clock isn't there, but it's the same building. And there were a few fires as well apparently, and it almost got damaged, but yeah, so I didn't actually think that it was still around until I looked it up recently. I love after she kisses him here and the music comes back in. That's the power. It's perfect. It's kind of cheesy, but I love it all the same. And you know, for me, this film is just... Maybe I should get into my overall thoughts of the film during the credits or something. I think I'll leave it till that. And I'm trying not to get too bogged down in trivia either, but there's a lot of fun stuff, I think. Like the school that served as Hill Valley, is a school that Richard Nixon was an alumnus of, which is interesting because he gets mentioned later on in the film. And just beyond the school, where the school actually is where Strickland's home is, which is seen in Back to the Future Part 2. And again, this just sets up... I want to avoid this as well, just describing what's going on, but you know, we got the wreck there, and the introduction to one of the best characters in the whole series, the one and only Biff Tannen, who was named in homage to Ned Tannen, who was the one-time head of Universal. And there he is with George McFly. And yeah, Ned Tannen, who used to be head of Universal, actually threw Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis' script for I Want to Hold Your Hand on the floor in a heated meeting, and accused it of being anti-Semitic, despite the fact that Bob Gale is Jewish, which is kind of funny. Tim Robbins was considered for the role of Biff Tannen, actually. That would have been very different, but I think Thomas F. Wilson is perfect as Biff. It's a shame he's kind of shied away from Back to the Future over the past, 10 years or so. He used to sing a really funny song about kind of Back to the Future fans coming up to him and stuff. Hilarious if you haven't seen it. Just YouTube Thomas F. Wilson Back to the Future song. But he doesn't sign anything from Back to the Future anymore. He doesn't take part in any of the reunions, and I find it really weird because it isn't a guy who's gone on to bigger and better things. But maybe it's because he hasn't gone on to bigger and better things, and he's feels hampered down by the role of Biff and doesn't like it anymore. I don't know, but he's great anyway. and of course he's wearing this makeup to make him look a lot older. When I was a kid, I didn't really realize that these guys had lots of makeup to make them look older than they actually were. I never really thought about it, to be honest. For 1985, it's pretty damn good. I've seen some of the makeup tests they've done on special features and things, but uh, the final product is actually pretty good, I think. I mean, almost everyone has old makeup on. I mean, Biff, George McFly. I'm pretty sure Strickland does because his neck looks unhuman in that scene where he's squaring off with Marty. So you know your mom for me. It's one of my favorite lines as well. Biff is such a dick, and George is just so delightfully inept at everything, you know. And Crispin Glover, who similarly has kind of moved away from Back to the Future for more different and wacky reasons, I think, but he's just so perfect as George here, you know, just running the hand across the back of the head. And you know, at this point his son Marty, well, throughout the whole film really, Marty is the one who's kind of the guy who takes action. He's the guy he's more of a man than his dad, and it's so ironic the way it works out in the end, and I'll talk about that more. But yeah, it took 3 hours for Leah Thompson to get the makeup done to be Lorraine. There's a Diet Pepsi can there. There's a lot of Pepsi product placement in this film. See if you can spot how many there are. There's quite a lot of them. So yeah, here we go, Leah Thompson as Lorraine McFly, and yeah, she's 23 years old when she made this film, and she's playing a 47-year-old Lorraine in this scene. And I met Leah Thompson actually a few years ago at London Film and Comic Con, which was a great experience. Basically, you know, I went up to talk to her and have her sign my poster, and there was this little confusion where she was talking to someone else, and it seemed quite rude, but then she turned to me and she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and she apologized and stuff, and she noticed my Back to the Future t-shirt, and she's, "Oh, that's great," and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's a bit cheesy really, isn't it, wearing a Back to the Future t-shirt while meeting someone from the film?" And she's like, "No, I love it, I love people who, you know, I just love meeting fans and stuff." And so she was really super nice, and it was a great experience meeting her. Wendy Jo Sperber, who plays Linda McFly on the left there, she was actually 3 years older than Leah Thompson, who played her mother, and 6 years older than Crispin Glover, who played her father. So yeah, that was quite interesting. I think she also starred opposite Eric Stoltz in The Wildlife from the year before, and Eric Stoltz, of course, was the original Marty McFly, and we'll talk about him pretty soon as well. Dave McFly, the wearing of the Burger King uniform, might have been a tribute to the fact that Leah Thompson actually used to do a couple of early acting gigs as a Burger King spokesperson. There was actually a brief scene cut in between this one and Marty being woken up by Doc's phone call. It involved Marty kind of preparing to send his demo tape into a record company, but he decides not to do it and leaves the empty envelope on his desk. But in the scene that remains in the film, he goes to breakfast with the manila envelope sealed, suggesting he did decide to send it in. And again, the theme of, you know, being afraid of rejection and not putting yourself out there. And again, this is a very fun film. It's a blast to watch and stuff, but there are interesting themes in it, and I love the theme of just, you know, again, if you don't put your mind to it, you know, if you do put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. It's a very positive message, I think. Even though Crispin Glover, who plays George McFly, he thinks that this film has a very negative message, and we'll get to that at the end of the film as well. Yeah, some viewers actually criticised this scene for being a thinly disguised commercial for Pepsi because of the use of it. I love this laugh from Crispin Glover. Such a great, like, bad laugh. I love it. And this scene, you know, just like the family's just like, you know, they go into the Diet Pepsi, bing. You know, the family's just, it's not a, well, I wouldn't say it's not a happy one, but it's not a very successful family. You know, no one's really excelling at anything in life, and it just seems all a bit sad. Always Frank Marty's position on the bed there, really weird with his leg hiked up, but got Pepsi free there on the can. And again, Doc on the other end of the phone. But yeah, Ralph Macchio turned down the role of Marty McFly, the Karate Kid. He thought the movie was about a kid, a car, and plutonium pills, so he turned the film down. According to Bob Gale, Johnny Depp auditioned for the role of Marty, and he said that he looked at the notes and said, "Geez, I didn't even remember that we read Johnny Depp, so whatever he did, it wasn't all that memorable, I guess." And here we go, the Twin Pines Mall, that'll come into play later on. This is actually a lot harder than I thought it was. It feels like there's just not enough time to get out all the information I want to talk about, and again, didn't want to get too bogged down in stuff like this. According to Bob Gale, when one of the early drafts of the script, Marty's original last name was McDermott, but it was thought to have too many syllables, so Robert Zemeckis, the director, came up with McFly. And I believe we are now 18 minutes into the film, and this is when the first piece of score comes in from Alan Silvestri. Yeah, here we go. The amazing score. I mean, you have some great music, some great songs and stuff, but the actual score itself, just as the DeLorean comes out, that's when the music kicks in. I love that. I've got Out of Time on the license plate there, and Steven Spielberg actually had some reservations about hiring Alan Silvestri. He was unimpressed with his score for Romancing the Stone. They'd had a preview screening, and the film was accompanied by a temporary track that used part of Silvestri's score, and Spielberg commented to Robert Zemeckis that that's the sort of music this film needs, unaware that it was Silvestri's music. And here's Doc Brown, Christopher Lloyd, again with old age makeup and stuff, which is very subtle, I think. I think they actually kind of did it even more extreme when they pulled it back. I think the hair makes him look a lot older as well. I really thought he was a really old man when I first saw this film, and I was surprised when I was a teenager to learn that he was only in his 60s at that time. So here we go, the introduction of Doc Brown. Christopher Lloyd is just absolutely perfect for me. So good. The producer Neil Canton offered the role of Doc Brown to Christopher Lloyd after he worked with him on The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension the year previously. Christopher Lloyd actually turned it down to begin with, but he changed his mind when his wife convinced him to take on the role. So we have to thank his wife for sure for this amazing performance. He improvised some of his lines as well. John Lithgow, Dudley Moore, and Jeff Goldblum were considered for the role of Doc Brown. Also James Woods. Christopher Lloyd said he based his performance of Doc on the composer, the conductor, Leopold Stokowski, and physicist Albert Einstein, which is interesting. So yeah, in the original script, I love this. Doc and Marty, they sell bootleg videos in order to fund the time machine. But this was removed because Universal thought that it was kind of promoting movie piracy. So I really love that idea though of Doc and Marty with a little bootleg video shot. That's so awesome. Now, from when Doc sends Einstein here 1 minute into the future, the time elapsed between when the DeLorean disappears and reappears is actually 1 minute 21 seconds, just as the reappearance occurred at 1:21 a.m. So, and also the flux capacitor requires 1.21 gigawatts of electricity, and this is just such a brilliant scene. Now, the test audiences for the film, who saw it before it came out, they weren't told that it was a comedy, and so the atmosphere in the cinema was apparently really tense during the scene because people weren't sure what was going to happen to the dog when he sent through time. They were thinking maybe something gruesome would happen. I love this. I love this look from Doc, just like looking at Martin. He's like, "Fucking hell, this is mental." He's got all the information. He's like, "Right, we're going to do this. This is going to go back in time," and then just that one little look at Marty, like that recognition of, "Fucking hell, this is nuts, isn't it?" And just this look on the face is excitement, and it gets up to 88, and again, one of the great shots, of that car just boom, and the fire, and so iconic. And his reaction there, Christopher Lloyd, just he's brilliant. He's so over the top, but it just works. It just fits so well with the character. That's a great shot as well. I love how they did that, and I love how the flames are real as well. I mean, the shot before, you could tell that it was kind of blue screened on, but you can tell that they're standing where real flames, and the flames slowly go out, and I love that as well. But I mean, I remember watching this as a kid, just being blown away by just this part of it. I didn't even know that Marty was going to go back in back in time or anything like that. I knew nothing about it, obviously, but this film just captured my imagination so much. I used to watch it with my nan a lot, and it reminds me of my nan a lot. She's still around, but it always makes me think of her, and all the times I'd stay over my nan's at the weekend, and she'd be like, "What film do you want to watch?" And I'd be like, "Back to the Future," and we'd watch it with dinner, and yeah, good times. Michael J. Fox was actually always the first choice for Marty, but he was unavailable due to scheduling conflicts with his work on Family Ties, which was a TV show at the time. And so they cast Eric Stoltz as Marty based on his performance in Mask. But after 4 weeks of filming, they decided that he just wasn't right for the part, and so he kind of was fired. Basically, it was amicable, but yeah, they basically just tried to make a way for Michael J. Fox to get involved. So he worked out a schedule to fulfill his commitment to both projects. So he was still doing the full-time TV show whilst filming this. Every day during production, he drove straight to the movie set after taping the show. Finished every day and averaged around 5 hours of sleep. The bulk of this production was filmed from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. with daylight scenes filmed on weekends. And actually reshooting all the scenes they shot with Eric Stoltz added $3 million to the budget. That's just crazy. That really is crazy, and it just shows how much faith they had that Michael J. Fox was the guy they needed. Apparently Eric Stoltz was great, but just he didn't have the comic sensibilities. It wasn't playing the way they thought it would. So yeah, here we go. The first instance of time travel in the Back to the Future series. Apparently Eric Stoltz, when he was playing Marty, insisted that the cast and crew address him as Marty, even when the cameras weren't rolling, and he would wear Marty's wardrobe while traveling to and from the set. And according to Tom Wilson, the only time that method acting Stoltz would break character was when he would actively flirt with Leah Thompson, who plays, of course, Marty's mother in between takes. You can see more now where they put the makeup on Doc, on his face. Love all this as well. The where you've been, where you're going, and where you are. He just Christopher Lloyd just instills so much wonder into this idea. I mean, it's so fantastical to begin with, the idea of time travel, but just he's just so enthusiastic about it, and just the way he performs it is awesome. And again, this whole commentary is just going to be gushing over how awesome this film is, really. Now, the main setting of this film, 1955, is the year that Albert Einstein, the dog's namesake, dies. I love this as well. There's just such a sense of wonder, You can really see it on the neck there, the makeup, but he's great. And probably one of my favourite film characters of all time. There's the flux capacitor. Here I am, I'm just pointing out on script, there's the flux capacitor. Yeah, he's just, for me, one of my favourite characters of all time. I also got to meet Christopher Lloyd, which was really special. I'll talk about that a bit later on. And when he says there, I'll get to see who wins the next 25 World Series. No one knew that there would be a sequel at this point, but that actually went on to be a big part of Part 2, obviously. Apparently there's a sticker on Doc's rear truck that says, "One nuclear bomb can ruin your whole day." And they've got a reference to the pine trees, which will be, again, paid off very soon. The special effects crew, they actually bought 3 DeLoreans for the film, which cost around $15,000 to $18,000 for all 3 of them. One was the hero car that was completely kitted out and used for all the big shots. The second car was only modified from the outside for quick shots, and the third one was an insert car where the back was kind of cut off so they could get the camera inside for like close-ups and things like that. I mean, Time Machine went through many different variations. That just, don't mention the, So, again, the kind of glee he shows there of this nuclear stuff he's doing kind of worries Marty, and I love that as well. Yeah, initially it was actually going to be kind of a refrigerator that was, or like one was like a laser device, one was a refrigerator. Then they got worried that kids would try and lock themselves in their fridges. And the end of the film was going to be that they get in the refrigerator and be taken to an atomic bomb site at the end of the film. But the idea was scrapped because, again, they didn't want people getting into refrigerators and stuff, and also it kind of removed the action from Hill Valley for Doc and Marty to drive out into like the middle of the desert for this atomic bomb scene. Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis received a fan letter from John DeLorean after the film's release, thanking them for using his car in the film. Such an iconic car, but I think made all the more iconic by this. And I've always loved the design of it, and I've always dreamed of having a car with gull wing doors. I think it'd just be so awesome. And yeah, after the film's release, they came out with body kits for people to kind of kit out the DeLorean, just like the Time Machine, which is pretty cool. Now, the guys who are about to turn up, the terrorists, when it was broadcast on TV recently, or over the past 10 years, I suppose. The line Libyan terrorists was altered for political correctness, and it was changed to Libyan nationalists. And you will be shot by terrorists that Marty writes on the note was kind of digitally removed. So just using the word terrorist after kind of 9/11 was seen as very no-no, you know. And so it's interesting, you know, these little changes that happen due to the changing of the times. And they found me. I don't know how, but they found me. The Libyans! And I suppose it is. I love that as well. Like, holy shit! And the line earlier that I missed as well. You know, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit. When I watched it, it was recorded off the TV, so it was when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious stuff. And I think the holy shit bit was just edited out completely. But you gotta love the days of, you know, PG, you know, films back in the 80s where you could say holy shit and stuff like that every now and again. And that was a shocking moment as well as a kid. It was like, whoa, okay, this guy who was like so entertaining on screen is now dead. That's a shame. You know, the gas-powered struts that would hold the DeLorean's gull-wing doors open would actually fail during the course of filming a take, so crew members had to be on standby with hairdryers to warm them up to stop the doors from dropping. So they had a bit of trouble with the gull-wing doors with the DeLorean during filming. And this is just such an exciting scene as well. And again, you go from just this moment of wonder, just thinking about time travel, to suddenly, right, okay, this is going to happen for real. It's not just going to be something you don't see where the dog disappears and then comes back. You're actually going to be inside the car now, and you're going to see what it's like and where it takes you, and it's just so exciting, you know. Apparently, according to Michael J. Fox, the interior of the DeLorean was so tight due to the added props that every time he had to shift gears, he would repeatedly hit his forearm on the handle that turns on the time circuits, and he would also like hit his knuckles against the time display board. And apparently, if you pay attention during this scene, you can hear the hits every time he uses the shifter, which I've never heard myself or tried to listen to. But yeah, there's just the music as well. Again, this is one of my favorite scores, I think, of all time. Just so nostalgic as well. It takes me right back to being a kid and. See if you bastards can do 90. And of course he forgets about 88 miles an hour, and there we go, 1955. It all it all comes together for this momentous occasion where Marty goes back to 1955, and here we go. I love how unremarkable it is. He's just on a field and that's it, and then and then he crashes it. Oh, you can tell that shot sped up, but straight into a barn. And they chose the DeLorean obviously because of the design. Could kind of pass off as kind of something of a kind of a futuristic spaceship kind of thing, you know, which plays in perfectly to this gag, which is brilliant as well. Where you know, people in 1955 would just assume it's a spacecraft, and the kids got the comic, and I love that. It's a really cool sight gag. That looks like an airplane without wings. This is a very stereotypical American farm family. That's just so good. I love that. Just so simple but so funny, you know. And at this point, you know, when I'm watching this as a kid, I'm just thinking, like, where is this going, you know? It was just, blast every time. And I think it just gets better as well. Now you got the kind of the realization that things are not quite as they seem for Marty here. And I always found this particularly brutal that he comes out with a fucking shotgun, nearly blows Marty's head off. Like, that would be a good end to the film, wouldn't it? Credits, you know. Such great comic timing by Michael there on the kind of the fall behind. The fall over the door frame. Old Man Peabody, of course. And here we go. We got the Twin Pines here coming up, and Marty's gonna knock one of them over. Boom. Peabody, boom. Only there for a few seconds, but you'll get it later on. Twin Pines Ranch. And off he goes. And now we've got a scene that's kind of rear projection, you know, which is pretty cool. I think, you know, when done well, it can really, you know, it can be quite effective. You can see that Michael's like kind of doing that thing where people in films, they just kind of move the wheel like back and forth, even though they should be holding it steady. Now this, just again, the ideas in this film were so interesting. You know, this is where he lives. They haven't built it yet. It's just a field, and that the music sells the how dramatic that is as well. You know, live in the home of tomorrow, and that pretty much is his house as well. You know, almost groundbreaking this winter. Love that. And then of course they're freaking out. Some weird guy in a yellow suit with a futuristic car. And here we go. Now he's got to kind of leave the DeLorean behind and go check out the rest of Hill Valley and see, you know, see what's going on. Apparently, the script never called for Marty to repeatedly hit his head on the gullwing door, but it was kind of improvised during filming as the door mechanism became faulty. I don't remember any scenes where he hits his head, but apparently there's a few. It feels vaguely familiar, but I'm not too sure. And now we've got the classic Marty attire with the red jacket and the denim jacket and the shirt and everything. And then we've got Mr. Sandman coming in here, kind of to put you right into the 50s. And there's my cat crying, as I told you she definitely would. The music score is the Four Aces singing Mr. Sandman. Marty passes a record shop with a poster in that advertises the Chordettes' original version of the song. So again, I just love how the attention to detail of making this look like it's a 50s town. Obviously the cars very much scream 50s. And all that kind of thing, and stuff like that. You know, guys running out, and this is one of the best shots I think in the film, with Marty there with the clock tower behind him, just like looking in wonder at how, there you go, the Chordettes, just looking at how much his town has changed. It just makes you think, what would happen if you went to your hometown 30 years, you know, in the past. Such a cool idea. And I mean, they really meticulously like researched what shop signs looked like in 1955, things like this. Now this whole like town set might look familiar because in the 1984 film Gremlins, Kingston Falls, it was filmed in the exact same lot. So there's an opening shot of Gremlins that looks very similar to this because they filmed it in the same place. Yeah, this is a 50s sensibility, and you know, a much different way of life is really represented here. I love how the mountains are in the background because it makes it feel more like a real place, you know, as opposed to just being a random backlot where you don't really see beyond the actual buildings that are in shot. You get to see, you know, the mountains in the background and things like that. And then, you know, I love this this little device of him checking the day's paper. You know, the film is so simple in a way. But every simple part is so, for me, meticulously put together. It's just such a great... I mean, you could almost watch this without the sound on. You know, it could almost be a silent film. The story is told so visually, which is another one of the things I love about it. And again, Michael J. Fox, his physical acting, you know, the way he ran into that shop, you know, great physical timing and comedic timing. With the life preserve, you know, he could have been a silent star. I really think. I've never actually made the connection before, but yeah, I think that a lot is told visually in this film. You know, even down to this beat. You know, where he's trying to find Doc in the Dr. Emmett Brown in the phone book. And yeah, I mean, going back in time and not only, you know, seeing what your town would be like, but also what people you know would be like, and getting to see them 30 years in the past, very, you know, before you were even alive, is a very, very tantalizing subject. I think is a very appealing. Um, and now he asked him if he's going to order anything. Uh, take a tab. If you want a Pepsi, pal, you got to pay for it. Pepsi Free, of course, was a Pepsi brand in the 80s, and of course, it's just a funny joke because he thinks he's asking for a free Pepsi. But yeah, and Tab was a Diet Cola brand that was produced by Coca-Cola, I believe. And again, seeing the similarities, and seeing the younger characters, Thomas F. Wilson looks completely different, as Biff here. I almost thought they were different actors when I first saw the film. And again, Crispin Glover is so brilliantly geekish and pathetic in this film, and I've known people like that in school, and so it's a very relatable kind of character. Same with Biff in a way, that kind of typical jock character who's kind of maybe a bit taller than everyone else, maybe a bit more muscly than everyone else, and has his gang of cronies and can kind of walk over anyone. I think most of us have known people like that in school before. Dork thinks he's gonna drown. Of course, we got Billy Zane there as one of his cronies, who is probably most known for the film Titanic, the prick. Inside there he is to the right there. I love that guy on the right with the 3D glasses. Of course, 3D films didn't really originate in the 2000s. They came about in the 50s, all the way back then. Not a lot. Well, I think a lot of people know, but casual movie fans probably wouldn't know that. Yeah, I just recently saw this shot, but with Eric Stoltz, as Marty, and it was very weird because I mean, again, Michael J. Fox just perfect, and it's such a weird idea as well, to go back to when your parents were the same age you are, and to see what they were like. Very interesting, I think. And the cafe owner, he kind of scoffs at the idea when he says, that's right, you're going to be mayor. And the guy who runs the cafe kind of scoffs at it like a black mayor, like, yeah, right. But actually, the first black mayor of California town was Edward Duplex, who was elected mayor of Wheatland in 1888. So it wasn't actually that far removed from reality, even back, in the previous century. But yeah. I'm going to clean up this town. Mayor Goldie Wilson. I like the sound of that. And that great reveal there that George is gone, So much is done visually, and you can really pay attention to kind of the framing of this film, just to show how well to tell a story with a camera, But of course, you need the performances there to tell that as well. The owner of the home where the tree is that George is hanging from here is actually a small-time producer who makes documentaries and biographies. Several years after the film was released, he put together a 15-minute documentary on the tree on Bushnell Avenue that was used in the film, featuring never-before-seen footage, but I've never seen it. And again, you get these realizations, that your parents would do stuff that you probably would have never imagined they do. I mean, there might be people out there who have parents who are very close to them and they know every intimate detail of their past, but it just goes to show you sometimes that, boom. Oh! I've got to imagine that was a rubber, concrete mat or something, because he really banged his head on the back there and probably would have really hurt himself if it was real concrete. But, George, that pesky peeping Tom. And of course, now the butterfly effect, he got in the way of history and has changed everything, which is another really exciting concept, And then we get introduced to Leah Thompson as Lorraine McFly, as a teenager, or again, she's 23 when she was in this film. And we see this scene kind of replicated and mirrored in the next two films, with him being woken up by either his mother or someone else played by Leah Thompson. And it is, to be honest, quite a creepy idea of your mum kind of having the hots for you, if you think about it. But it was something that never really kind of never really fazed me as a kid. I never looked at it like that. I just looked at it as entertaining and like, oh, that's a bit of an awkward situation, you know. But you're so thin. I love the little thing of her calling him Calvin Klein because of his underwear, you know. Such a funny little beat to the story, and just I love how she just keeps calling him Calvin Klein. It's like, call me Marty, okay, Calvin. um, and Michael J. Fox is only 10 days younger than Leah Thompson, so not much of an age difference at all. But he's actually 3 years older than his dad, Crispin Glover, who I guess would have been 20 when he made this film. But yeah, I mean, you know, they were cast to match, you know, the younger self's ages, really. So, you know, it is weird thinking about it. You know, the whole the mother and son dynamic here that could get potentially very awkward, but it just it comes across somehow as so innocent at the same time. You know, just the way that Marty acts. You know, does that falling off the bed? You know, he's so uncomfortable with it. So you know, you don't really give in to the idea that anything would happen. Although I suppose her kind of that look on her face then, she's so excited that she's got this young guy in her room with just a pair of underpants and a t-shirt on. But you know, I guess it's really only from her side that it's kind of gets a bit awkward, whereas he is completely shying away from it, obviously, as anyone would. And yeah. Well, I've been rambling for quite a lot now, and I'm going to take a little sip of my drink. Oh, there's another Pepsi bottle there. Ding! More Pepsi product placement. And here we have the Uncle Joey behind bars still. Get used to these bars, kid. I love that. I just love all the callbacks, you know. I mean, you have like film franchises where they'll like put in nods to earlier films and things, but this is one where it just sets up so many things between 1985 and 1955 that pay off later, you know. Even if they're just tiny things that people would maybe not get the first time round, you know. It's fun just seeing, you know, the idea of TV being such a novelty back then, you know, and what's a rerun, you know. It's the kind of culture shock thing that's being represented, you know. The body language is so telling here, you know. And again, I'm going to keep saying it. I think this would work as a silent film. You know, you can tell how uncomfortable he is just by his body language, and you can tell how eager she is just by her body language. And I think it's just the hand on the leg, isn't it, that just sets him off, and he's like, I'm out of here, you know. It's brand new. I always remember that just tickled me as a kid. Just this young kid with a Davy Crockett hat on, just like what's a rerun? You know, just looking at Marty with such, you know, so incredulous. Like, what are you talking about? Who are you? Get out of my house. The kid's just like, I don't like this guy. The the house used for Doc Brown's house, we're going to see in a second, is the Gamble House at 4 Westmoreland Avenue, Pasadena, California. And it was the home of the Gamble family until 1966. Until it was turned over to the University of Southern California, it is now a historical museum. Who are the Gamble family? I couldn't tell you. Oh, just that line. Barely a whisper, he can sleep in my room. And he's like, whoa, that is it. I am fucking out of here. No chance. See you later. Thanks, but no thanks. Very strange young man. Parents are probably idiots too. There we go. Ah, she's so smitten for him. It's awful. It really is awful. Here we go. I'm gonna get our first glimpse of Doc in 1955, and again, he doesn't look too much younger. I mean, his hair's still quite grey, not as completely, well, I mean, still quite white, not as completely white as it was in 1985. It's kind of grey, but it's still kind of the same kind of style, and he looks very much still the mad professor, you know. So the whole scene is brilliant, and yeah, my cat is definitely, you know, there's no chance that my cat would keep quiet for this at all. So he's conducting some weird experiment and got this massive contraption on his head with that jacket he's got on as well. And now this garage, no, is it this garage or is it? No, it's not this garage. No, that comes later. My mistake. I'll talk about the garage later on. But yeah. So there's some confusion here, and of course we obviously get the idea that Doc Brown is just a guy who comes up with these crazy contraptions that just never work, you know. I mean, you can tell he's put so much effort into it, but it just doesn't really work. And now Marty drops some truth on him, and finally he realizes, my God, almost tears welling up in his eyes, you know. It means that this doesn't work. And of course, because he's never made anything that works, you know, he just doesn't believe Marty at all, and it is such a wild concept. And of course, he has the plaster on his forehead there, or just above his eye, you know, which again is what he talked about earlier on, where he kind of was rearranging his clock and he slipped, fell, hit his head, and he woke up and drew a picture of the flux capacitor, which is what, you know, made time travel possible. And he got the picture of Marty and his siblings there, who are slowly disappearing. I love that idea as well. Another great visual clue that, you know, he has changed the course of time and it is slowly unraveling because of what he's done and the events that he's changed. Ronald Reagan, the actor. Oh, I was thinking of Richard Nixon earlier, not Ronald Reagan. Oh, there we go. Apparently, Ronald Reagan was really amused by Doc Brown's disbelief that an actor like him could become a president, because of course Ronald Reagan was an actor in 1955. Good night, Future Boy. I love him calling Marty Future Boy. Yeah, apparently Reagan enjoyed it so much that he made a direct reference to it in his 1986 State of the Union address. As they say in the film Back to the Future, where we're going, we don't need roads. That part of the script actually needed to be approved by the White House so as not to offend him. I love that look of Doc there when he realizes. And again, my cat is like crying like she's never cried before. It's like she knows I'm doing something, so she's decided to go mental with the crying. Yeah, Ronald Reagan, that needed to be cleared with the White House. They had some concerns over, you know, Doc kind of mocking the fact that he could be a president, but apparently Ronald Reagan really enjoyed it and got them to rewind the film when they screened it at the White House, which is pretty cool. And there is the picture of the flux capacitor that he drew, and he's now realizing that it actually happened. He made something that works, and it's now facing him, you know, in reality, but from the future. You know, that would blow anyone's mind, right? And again, Christopher Lloyd just sells the wonder, disbelief, and joy so much, you know. I finally made something that works. It's the wild gestures that he does, and just the way he moves again. It's like a silent film, just the almost exaggerated movements, but it works so well within the fabric of everything that this film does and lays out, and such a great visually told film, and getting to see yourself as an old man, you know, mental. And of course Marty kind of makes sure he doesn't see the part where, you know, it's shown the terrorists come to get him, and now my cat is literally dragged in a huge twig like a dog, because she's just the weirdest, and it's now really annoying me because she's just flicking it around the whole floor, and it's probably making a lot of noise, and I would love to just grab it from her right now. We'll see if I can do that without kind of interrupting everything. Okay, I've got it. And yeah, now she's just going to really distract me for the whole time. Yeah, so We got Marty here showing Doc the tape and stuff. Apologies for that disturbance. 1.21 gigawatts! Now, apparently gigawatt is a now obscure but once standard pronunciation of the word gigawatt. 1 billion watts. Nowadays it's pronounced with a hard G, as in gold, gigawatt. But in Neo-Latin languages, still it's pronounced with a soft G. So yeah, he chose it as gigawatt. I would never call it gigawatt. It's gigawatts. 1.21 gigawatts. And very random quick fact, but I actually used to do a wrestling move when I wrestled called 1.21 gigawatts, and I would shout 1.21 gigawatts as I did it. Now, when he sees that videotape and comes in and explains the need of 1.21 gigawatts, he's talking to a picture that he calls Tom, and the picture we can see on the mantle is Thomas Edison. He was speaking with, in a way, and to the left of Edison is Sir Isaac Newton and Benjamin Franklin and Albert Einstein's on the right. So you see all those the frames there behind Marty, and obviously Doc really looked up to these pioneers of invention and stuff, and of course the only thing powerful enough to create 1.21 gigawatts is a bolt of lightning, and Marty knows exactly when a bolt of lightning will strike. It's the perfect storm, It's such a great storyline, and such a great way to end the film and get Marty back to the future. It would have been such a shame if they had done the atomic bomb test site ending, because it would have been cool, I'm sure. But again, keeping it within Hill Valley, and just the idea of driving down the street and getting the rod to hit the wire just as the lightning strikes the tower, and to be timed so precisely, Back to the Future, there we go. Again, it's so over the top, but it never gets cheesy for some reason. Just the tone of this film is just so fun. And I honestly think this is one of the best films of all time. I put they probably like the top 50 films of all time, because I just think this is just an absolute standout example of a fun film. And films started out being, escapes from reality and just things that people go to have fun, and then drama came into it, and then the serious stuff. But this is just such an absolute blast, from start to finish. It's one of those almost perfect films, and now we see that, the photo continues to disappear. I love how Doc's like, this continues to prove my theory, even though like 2 minutes ago he was like, oh, there's a nicely doctored image there. Very convincing. Not. Now apparently, like, Doc's kind of hunched over look was developed when the filmmakers realized there was such an extreme difference in height between Lloyd and Fox. Michael J. Fox is 5'4.5", while Chris Lloyd is 6'1". So to compensate for the height difference, oh, there you go, he's bending down. Just as I'm saying it, they use specific blocking where the two would either stand far apart or at different camera depths. For close-ups, he would hunch over and to appear in frame, and the same approach was used in the sequels as well. And now we see George McFly just getting absolutely mercilessly bullied, and there's Strickland as well. Did that guy ever have hair? And again, mirroring the scene with Marty, 30 minutes ago, but 30 minutes in the future, calling him a slacker, and and now he realizes what has happened. The Nightingale effect as well that comes into it and stuff like that. And apparently Crispin Glover based his performance as 47-year-old George in the early part of the film on Jack Nance's portrayal of Henry Spencer in Eraserhead. And while filming George's writing scene coming up very shortly, Crispin Glover tried to have the scene shot with his hair standing straight up. He liked the idea of it being, again, a bit like Eraserhead, but Robert Zemeckis rejected the idea, saying it would not match what was shot with the previous day. And Crispin allegedly said, well, Brando never matched. So again, you got this 20-year-old guy who's kind of trying to compare himself to Marlon Brando, and it's I love his, again, crippling rejection shown through his body language. Isn't he a dreamboat? I love Doc's reaction, like, oh shit, this is not good. This is definitely not good. Yeah. Whoa, wait a minute, Doc. You trying to tell me? My mom's got the hots for me. I love just the movement of this scene, the way that Doc is pacing around, and brilliant line. You know, there's that word again, heavy. Is there something wrong with the Earth's gravitational pull in the future? The writing is fantastic in the film, and again, I love the motion of the staging. And you know, they were in that hallway, and Doc was moving around, and now they're walking back, and you know, it's just you know, when things are always moving, it makes it a bit more interesting, I think, especially for a film like this where there is so much like kinetic motion going on. Yeah, again, everything's so exaggerated. The movements, I never really thought about it like this. I'm like analyzing this maybe too much at this point, but yeah. And here's the scene where Crispin Glover wanted to kind of have his hair standing straight up, but the director said no, basically. There was a deleted scene from this section of the film where Marty was peeking in on a class that his mother was taking and saw her cheating on a test. I always liked this scene because when I was a kid I used to write a lot as well, and I'd write fantasy stories and sci-fi stories, and so I kind of identified with the character of George, and it almost gave me a kind of reason for, hey, you know, I'm like that, and you know, maybe I should stand up for myself, and you know, not take shit from bullies and things like that. And so yeah, I like that part of it, that I related to it to that degree. And when Biff comes up here and, you know, comes up with a couple of classic, you know, Butthead and Make Like a Tree and Get Out of Here. Apparently they were improvised by Thomas F. Wilson. And I love the whole Make Like a Tree and Get Out of Here. Just the running joke throughout the series of Biff just getting jokes completely wrong. It's just hilarious. And there we go, mirroring of the father and son. I don't know if I could take that kind of a rejection. And yeah, you know, when you analyze it like this, it almost seems like it is a bit too on the nose. Like it is a bit too, you know, oh yeah, I can see the father and son, history repeats itself, you know. But it is really smart and cleverly done. And when you just watch it and enjoy it, and you're not doing a stupid audio commentary like I am, you can, you know, you just get carried away with it, and it all like links together in a really pleasing way, I think. Oh man, he really grabbed a hold of him then. I love how he readjusts his shirt there. Again, the way this is shot as well, you know, just looking down on Marty from behind Biff, and great smug kind of shit-eating grin from Biff there, and it's fun to see a character just absolutely stand up for himself, and Marty is definitely one to just stick to his guns and just, you know, stand up to anyone basically, even if he is, you know, completely and utterly outmatched and would get his ass kicked by someone like Biff, you know. But then again, it comes into it later on that, you know, size isn't everything, and it's, you know, a bit more about the heart and courage of it as well. And now he's just desperately clinging on to his dad and trying to get this hopeless case to ask out his mum, which is, again, the idea of that, trying to set your parents up together, you know, is a crazy thing to think about. And apparently, Crispin Glover said that he lost his voice due to nervousness filming Back to the Future, and for some scenes he had to silently mouth his lines, and his voice was kind of dubbed in later at a recording studio, obviously. Here we go. It's the photo continues to disappear. Now, when Marty turns up here and pretends to be Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan, he plays a tape labeled Van Halen to scare George, and it's an untitled Edward Van Halen original written for the movie called The Wildlife, which featured Leah Thompson. So you can make all these kinds of connections when you're looking at trivia. It's a great idea as well that like heavy metal music would be so like mental in the 50s. Like, what is this? What is this? It would seem like out of this world, like incomprehensible stuff, you know. Now the title of this film, Back to the Future, the head of Universal Pictures, Sid Sheinberg, insisted nobody would see a movie with future in the title. In a memo he wrote to Robert Zemeckis, he said that the title should be instead changed to Spaceman from Pluto, which tied in with Marty as an alien, you know, the jokes earlier on in the film. But also suggested further changes like replacing I'm Darth Vader from Planet Vulcan with I'm a spaceman from Pluto, tying in with the film title, Spaceman from Pluto. There's another Pepsi, ding. Sheinberg was persuaded to change his mind by a response memo from Steven Spielberg, who thanked him for sending such a wonderful joke memo, and that everyone got a real kick out of it. So, Sheinberg was like, right, change the film to this, and Spielberg was basically like, oh, that's really funny, yeah, we got a kick out of that, nice joke. So he was kind of too proud to admit he was serious and kind of gave in to letting them call it Back to the Future. But yeah, it definitely wouldn't be as cool of a film if it was called Spaceman from Pluto, I don't think. Back to the Future is such a fucking awesome title, But he requested many changes throughout the film. He changed Professor Brown to Doc Brown. Apparently the dog Einstein was originally a chimp called Shemp, but was changed to the dog at Scheinberg's request. And Marty's mother name had previously been Meg and then Eileen, but Scheinberg insisted she be named Lorraine after his wife, Lorraine Gary, sorry. So I have to say, even though he had an awful idea about the title of the film, Doc Brown, Einstein, and Lorraine are all great character names, so yeah, that's okay, I think. The Texaco gas station that you just saw there is shown in both 1955 and 1985. Interestingly enough, Christopher Lloyd's maternal grandfather was one of the founders of the Texaco Oil Company. That's just so great. Get me a milk chocolate. such a badass line for such a tame thing, And this is definitely one of the funnier lines of the film, You are my density, I mean destiny. I mean, this looks like it could be one of those lines where he just silently mouthed it and recorded it later because he's so softly spoken in this scene. So, yeah. So, I mean, Michael J. Fox actually had to insert the letter J into his name to differentiate himself from being, there's another actor called Michael Fox. And you can't, on the Screen Actors Guild, you can't have the same name as someone else. That's why Michael Keaton is called Michael. Michael Keaton's real name is Michael Douglas. So there's another example of it. But in 1955, a few scenes back, George said he's a huge fan of the show Science Fiction Theater. And the original Michael Fox starred in the real Science Fiction Theater, which is funny. Oh, I thought the marks for people to stand on were shown on the floor then, but it was just the pattern of the cafe floor. Again, such great framing where, Biff is like towering over Marty, and they probably exaggerate it even more, and it's just so like, he's trying so hard to get his mum and dad together, but just by standing up to Biff, he just gets his mum's affections even more. And this is a brilliant scene as well, and making a kind of makeshift skateboard. And I mean, I guess the idea is almost the sort of thing that he kind of invented the skateboard, in a way. I mean, at the very least, the idea of the film is that he invented rock and roll, which is fantastic. Quite a paradox, though, to think that he would have had to have listened to it first. And when you get into kind of time travel, things like that, and questioning how the future and the past changes, it obviously gets a bit murky. But this film gets it pretty damn tight, I have to say. That shot just seemed like out of a 50s film to me as well. Just Leo Thompson's expression, the music, and yeah, it was really kind of 50s-ish, which I kind of always loved that little shot. Now that fight that Marty and Biff just had, Thomas F. Wilson almost broke his collarbone when they shot it with Eric Stoltz when he was playing Marty, and he kind of roughed up Tom Wilson for real, take after take, despite repeated requests from Tom to tone it down. And Thomas F. Wilson later said he was about to return the favour during the filming of the car park scene. He was going to rough up Eric Stoltz a little bit, but of course he was fired before that confrontation could take place. And this is actually Billy Zane's first on-screen appearance as Match. That's a character name, one of Biff's cronies in the film. And here we go, the infamous manure scene. The D. Jones, if you see that on the side of the manure truck there, D. Jones. This is a reference to the film's unit production manager, Dennis E. Jones. So, yeah. Love how all the town get involved. You get a sense of just everyone being kind of just a close-knit kind of community and stuff. And it's such a big action scene, but it kind of takes place all in the same kind of town square. And, how could I get that son of a bitch? And it's almost Miss George in the background there, just like, all right, yeah, I'm leaving, you know. And Lorraine there is just so like almost psychotically infatuated with Marty. Now this garage right here, I didn't know this until recently when I read it, but this garage is the garage that Doc eventually lives in 1985. And there we go, we see him actually watching more of the videotape that kind of reveals a bit more about his fate. And yeah. But I love that. I never really put the two and two together, that the garage that, of course, you see at the beginning of the film, it says Doc Brown, the Brown Mansion's destroyed. Of course, the house that we've seen in 1955 no longer exists in 1985. And so he now just lives in this garage where they hid the DeLorean in 1955. So you just get the sense that maybe he has like this extra garage for just extra stuff that he's tinkering around with. You see all this stuff in the background, so that is incredible. Please excuse the crudity of this model. I didn't have time to build it to scale. I love that. Such a ridiculous line, like Marty would expect him to make a more accurate representation of Hill Valley. But you can see like there's bottles and stuff, and there's like a toolbox, and so it is crudely made. But I love the idea of just, you know, making this kind of model town, and almost like telegraphing, you know, to the audience what's going to happen later on and what the plan is. And again, very visual. It shows you everything you need to know. And I love how Doc looks with his, you know, the dirty, you know, white robe he's got on, and the goggles that are up above his head, and you got the cut that he knocked his head from earlier on as well. But you know, it's implied that he sold the land surrounding his house for more money to kind of fund his project, because he said later on it took many years and his entire family fortune to build the time machine. So even though the mansion was destroyed, he kind of sold the land, and but again is living in squalor in this garage in 1985, as we saw, where that pathetic little bed with the, you know, looks very messy and stuff. And this is fantastic. This is where you need to almost just screenshot the film. Christopher Lloyd's face here, where the car hits the goes on fire and hits this rag here, and his mouth just goes like, how does his mouth go open this wide? It's ridiculous. Here we go. Oh, genius. I love how his hair's shocked back, and oh, brilliant. I mean, the film's blasting through now. I'm really getting through it. Hope you're enjoying so far. I mean, I'll try not to bog it down too much in just pointless trivia, but you know, it is actually quite hard to keep the momentum going. I mean, I'm sure that you guys would be okay with me just kind of being silent for a while, but you know, I feel a bit too conscious of silent gaps, really. Even though I need to take a drink right now, my throat's getting quite sore. So this is actually, I think, the only time Lorraine and Doc share a scene in the entire franchise, I think. Yeah. It marks the only on-screen dialogue that Christopher Lloyd and Lea Thompson have ever had, though they've appeared together in 5 movies and 1 TV movie. This is my Uncle Doc Brown. Christopher Lloyd just cracks me up. Oh. He's just creeping in the background there, just like, oh. And now obviously he's, you know, trying to get his mum and dad together for the under the sea dance, enchantment under the sea dance, and of course she wants to ask him. The dilemma continues. And I love the kind of way that her character is kind of, I mean, she's dressed very kind of innocently there, and like a, you know, just like a typical wholesome guy. Doc just casually leaning, like he's so close to this tense situation. That look he gives, he's just like, yeah, just that little nod. You've got to love Christopher Lloyd. You've got to love him. I love this bit as well, where he's like, "Hey, Daddy-o." But it's something really cool about seeing a father kind of, a son teach his father how to kind of stand up for himself and be a man, very strange dynamic. But yeah, Christopher Lloyd, I met him in 2011, London Film and Comic Con, and I'd never been to a convention before. I saw that he was there, and I was blown away. And I thought, I've got to meet him. I've got to meet this guy who's been such a figure head of my childhood growing up. You know, I've just not even this film, but many other films I've loved him in, and but this one particularly, I have to say. So I went to meet him. You could get a picture taken with him professionally for I think £25, and you get an autograph for £25. And I wanted both, so I got my Back to the Future poster signed by him, which is one of my most prized possessions I own, in terms of material stuff, obviously. And when I met him for the picture, I was waiting to meet him, and like there was these guys queuing up in front of me, and they were like, "Oh yeah," and he's on his phone to his mate, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm meeting the professor guy from Back to the Future, innit? Yeah." And I was like, "Wow, you're paying money to see this guy, and you're not even that big of a fan, you know." And as I slowly got towards the kind of little sectioned off bit where they were taking the picture, I saw him, and he was taking pictures. He wasn't really smiling or anything, you know. A lot of guys would just come in, just like put their arm around him and just take the picture and leave. A guy came in with his little like 1-year-old son, and his eyes lit up, and he was like, you know, you could tell the guy with the baby was a real fan, and he had a big smile on his face. And then someone else came up, and he didn't really look that happy and stuff like that. And then I went up to meet him, and I just went, "Hey, it's awesome to meet you," you know, just very, very short and sweet. I didn't want to gush or anything like that. And he just kind of smiled and nodded at me. He put his arm around me, and we took the picture. And it's one of my favorite pictures. We're both smiling, you know, and it's just, I just can tell that he's one of those kind of shy, quiet guys who, you know, it's been. I love how he just throws out on his face. He's one of those kind of shy guys who is quite quiet and reserved, but you know, appreciates the fans and stuff. And so I could tell he appreciated that I was a fan, and that it was special for me to meet him, and it really was. And I love that picture, and I just said thank you, and I left, and he nodded again, and that was it, and it was perfect, you know. And I love this scene because it's so poignant, you know. And that's what I love about this film. It has so much. It has everything. It has romance. It has comedy. It has action. It has this science fiction fantasy element. But it has these poignant moments as well. I really love the relationship between Marty and Doc, and it just feels like such a heartwarming relationship, you know. It's a really, you know, it's great. It's great to see, you know, see such a strong yet unlikely friendship that formed in, you know, the 80s and became stronger almost in the 50s, and how it goes through time and over like 100 years, and it's just such a cool thing to see throughout the whole trilogy. But you really don't. I can see "Shot by Terrorists" is on the letter here. It wasn't digitally removed, obviously, for the Blu-ray. This is just cool as well, having a letter like "Do not open it for 30 years." Yeah, right. Like anyone's gonna wait that long, you know? Well, maybe, you know, some people do have the patience to do that, but yeah, I love the scene of Back to the Future 2 that takes place during this. I love it. Have you got a permit for that? Of course I have. So he hides the letter in Doc's jacket for later on. Another cog to the machine that will continue roaring. And now we're already at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, just like that. But yeah, I met Christopher Lloyd, went to have the poster signed, and they were saying, okay, because again, he was signing very slowly. He was like 70 when I met him, I think. And by no means was he like, you know, old and couldn't function, but again, he was signing quite slowly, and they were saying he wasn't going to personalize any of the autographs and stuff. So we went through, and it was like a conveyor belt, basically. They had all these helpers, like, what are you going to sign? Give it here now. They shoved it over to him, and then they shoved it back to you. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to have this, you know. Crispin Glover's awkward dancing there. Yeah, I thought, I'm not going to have this, you know, just like shoved it towards me and that's it, move on next. And, you know, Christopher Lloyd was just looking down, he wasn't looking up. And I could tell he felt pressured by the people to move it on. So I just, I reached my hand out to shake his hand. He looked up and I said, oh, thank you, I really appreciate it. And he kind of smiled, a genuine smile, and said, you're welcome, you know. And I thought, yeah, I got that, you know. I didn't want it to be just like a wordless exchange and, you know, really impersonal. But yeah, that was my experience meeting Christopher Lloyd, and it was amazing, and I'll never forget it. Really, really special moment in my film loving life, I guess. Now, as I was saying with Lorraine, she seems so innocent and stuff, and now this is where it starts to kind of peel back. You know, she's drinking, and earlier on Marty was saying how, like, you know, his mum is very strict about drinking and going out and, you know, quote unquote parking and things like that. And this scene here where Marty takes a swig, they played a joke on him, the crew. They actually put a real bottle of liquor in there. It's supposed to be a prop liquor bottle, which, you know, doesn't have real alcohol inside, but it actually had real alcohol. And when he spits it out here, or maybe not here, maybe I think it's only in the outtakes on the Blu-ray. It's a great line. You begin to sound just like my mother. They played a gag on him, so in the outtakes it's really funny. He just spits it out, and he's just like, "What the fuck?" You know, real alcohol. When I was a kid, I did a little performance during assembly once in primary school, and me and my friend Jono, we had prop beer bottles with water in them. And we were just like sipping them and stuff, trying to look cool, and we felt like the baddest like motherfuckers in the world. You know, to put it in a term that Samuel L. Jackson would approve of. We just felt like, you know, we felt awesome just pretending to drink beer, and these kids were like, you know, in the crowd, and it was funny. Always reminds me of that when I think of the scene where he's drinking the beer and the crew switched it around. Now this is a very awkward scene again, you know. I mean, apparently there's a scene where Lorraine was supposed to say that when she grows up she'll let her kids do anything they want, and it was cut. But it was reinserted in Back to the Future Part 2 when the second Marty creeps past the car, and the first Marty in 1955 Lorraine are inside the car, and she states that she'll let her kids do anything, where the current Marty says, "I'd like to have that in writing." So they kind of cut the line from the first film but used it in the second. And this, just the look on her face is brilliant. And again, it could play like a silent film. It really could. And it just seems to somehow negate everything. It's a really weird thing they've done. This really just creepy story that comes across so innocently and just for laughs, and doesn't really get too awkward, even though by all rights it really should be. And then of course he's expecting George, but it's Biff, and now he's in big trouble. Who's not happy about his car being covered in shite. Now this is uncomfortable when he kind of gets in there, and there's, you know, he's got a boobs on show there, and he gets in and he's forcing himself on her, and that's for a kid watching that is a bit uncomfortable, you know. And I guess I didn't really know much of what was happening at the time, and obviously they're not going for like rape stuff here. It's more just he's trying to just, you know, kiss her and stuff and grope her, which is, you know, equally as horrible and disgusting, but, you know, they're not going for the full kind of thing. This is great. Is that the Pepsi in the back of the car then? Ding! They just come out and they're all smoking weed. It's brilliant. Well, one guy is anyway, and the smoke just billows out of the car. Don't want to mess with no reefer in it. It's brilliant. And now Marty's locked in the boot. Again, the film just keeps ratcheting up the tension of, you know, people getting stuck, and the keys are inside, yeah. So you just see them struggling here, and now he thinks it's Marty, and it's just such a perfect moment, you know, George's time to kind of finally be a man, even if it doesn't come to him straight away. And just the way it all comes together is so brilliantly done. It's great. It's really great. I mean, the way he states it, you know, just turn around, McFly. You know, it's really sinister. You know, Thomas F. Wilson, brilliant as Biff. Could be really funny when he wants to be, but he can be a real, you know, creepy bastard at the same time, which is perfect for the role. And I'm saying that, you know, you see Lorraine smoking and drinking, and it's like, oh, she's not as innocent as she makes out to be. But right from the get-go, we see that she's this horny, like, young girl who's just, like, pretty much desperate to get in Marty's pants, which is horrible. But you know, it shows that not all was what she made it out to be to Marty when they were back in 1985. And now the guitar player's hand is cut, so he can't play guitar, and so the music can't happen, so the dance can't happen, and, you know. And this is good, you know, you see him shove her down. It's not too extreme. He didn't punch her, you know, it's still bad, but it's enough for George to just think, right, fuck this. This guy is getting a knuckle sandwich. Boom! Great sell by Biff. I love Marty running in just to see that he did it. I love how he's just initially like, oh, I just did it, I can't believe it. He just has that initial moment of just geeking out to himself, like, I just knocked out Biff, you know. Which is great. Apparently, when Thomas F. Wilson is asked about Back to the Future by fans, he'll often just give them a postcard of frequently asked questions as a time saver. In his Back to the Future song, you know, apparently one of the questions that gets asked a lot is, was that real manure? Which he finds very exasperating. So all is saved. Oh wait, no it isn't, because the guitar player. And Marty is going to run around again. He's already sweating, but he's got to keep on going and plug away at, you know, saving, you know, his life basically. He'll just disappear otherwise. The storm. I never really thought about how over the top, you know, Christopher Lloyd is in this film. But as I've already said many times now, and I feel like I'm reiterating myself at this point, but it just feels, it just fits so well with the tone of the film. It doesn't feel over the top or cheesy. I'm sure there are people out there who do think it's cheesy and over the top, but for me, it fits like a glove every time. And it, that look. So for you lovers out there, now this is the song "Earth Angels" by the Penguins. And this Enchantment Under the Sea dance took place on November 12th, 1955. It was also played, this song, during the Smallville High School reunion dance in Superman 3 from 1983. And Mark McClure, who plays Dave McFly, also appeared in that film, in which he played Jimmy Olsen. And again, another wrench in the system, you know. I love how Michael plays this, you know, and he can't play, and why is that? Because his hand is about to slowly start disappearing because Courtney Gaines there, who I know more well from The Burbs from 1988, one of my favourite comedies. Courtney Gaines there is kind of commandeered Lorraine, and oh, here we go, this shot of Marty in his hand, and pretty damn good effect for 1985, I have to say. And George is, you know, he's not sure if he's going to do anything about it, but there we go. Just shoves the guy down. And the moment is sealed, of course, with a kiss. And the romance is fulfilled. And the song kicks in. Marty gets up. I love that little pop up with a glang of the chords of the guitar, and so well done with the music and everything. When every time I would watch this film growing up, this song would just be stuck in my head. You know, I just loved it, along with the entire score as well. But and the following song, which is coming up as well. So there we go. The first big dilemma is solved, but now Marty has to get back to the future. And I've definitely resorted to just talking about what is happening in the film. Oh well. And now Marty is going to invent rock and roll. Which again is very paradoxical, but a lot of fun nonetheless. So musician Mark Campbell did all of Michael J. Fox's singing, and he's credited as Marty McFly. And when he's playing the guitar in a minute, he kind of mimics kind of famous rock stars during the later part of the song. When he starts playing a bit more heavy metal style, kicking the speakers, you know, like The Who, playing the guitar while lying down like Angus Young from AC/DC, you know, hopping across the stage with one leg kicked up like Chuck Berry, and when he does the solo, it's kind of like a Jimi Hendrix, you know, Van Halen kind of solo, you know, exuberant kind of style of playing kind of thing. Love this song as well, and this is kind of the music my dad would listen to, or probably still does listen to. You know, old rock and roll stuff, and in fact he used to play this song actually in his band. He had a kind of rockabilly band for many, many years. They went through many different iterations, and I filmed some of their shows, and I definitely remember them doing this at a few points. And now everything's turned around for George, which is interesting. This little bit with all the dancing on the dance floor always reminds me of that scene in Grease. I guess it's probably just the 50s kind of look and feel of it. But yeah, I love this song growing up, and loved a lot of just, you know, similar music, because of course my dad would listen to it and play it a lot as well. And there you go. Chuck Berry's cousin Marvin, listen to this. So there you go, he hears that and comes up with Johnny B. Good, and rock and roll is invented, you know. So they're just like, what is this guy doing, you know? And it interests me as well, like, you know, in 30 years time from now, in like 2035, no, 2045 even, Jesus, you know, would there be a style of music that is so far removed from what we know now that it would just blow our minds? I don't think it is, you know. I think that, you know, pop culture and just the expansion of just everything entertainment wise has got to the point where I don't think there's too much that can kind of be done differently anymore. I'm sure there's still a few things, but, you know, from 55 to 85, pretty dramatic when you talk about heavy metal and stuff like that, and playing like this, and great stuff. Now apparently Michael J. Fox did learn as much as he could of all that solo stuff and played a lot of it, but obviously you know, other people played it or whatever, you know, standing guitarist, whatever, but, you know, the performance is all him. Another great line. Kids are gonna love it. Brilliant. Now this scene here, yeah, I've always liked this scene, but someone brought this up to me recently. I don't understand. I can't remember how this was brought to my attention. But basically, someone or some, I don't know. I'm getting all confused, but what I'm trying to say, right? I read somewhere. I'm pretty sure I read it, and it was a really good sound observation. Why the hell did Lorraine and why does Lorraine say, "Are we ever going to see you again?" And he's like, "I guarantee it." Why would they say that? You know, it's just the end of term. It's not like he's, you know, he said he's leaving forever or something. Maybe he did before off screen or something, but it's such a farewell, even though he's, for all they know, he's just a kid in their class, you know, who helped them out. And but either way, it's still fun, you know. And no film is perfect. And what a weird thing to say as well, you know. And surely they would realise, like, in about 25 years that, hang on, our son looks exactly like that guy who randomly turned up for 1 week of our lives, and we named our son after, you know. It's if you think about it, like, completely logically, of course, it falls apart a little bit. And I love Christopher Lloyd's damn. It's like, Doc, the time hasn't changed in like the 3 seconds it took you to pace back and forwards, you know. But Marty turns up, and we now get to the home stretch, the final home stretch of going back to the future. In the original script, actually, Marty playing rock and roll was going to cause a riot, which had to be broken up by the police. And that, combined with Marty accidentally tipping off Doc to the secret ingredient that made the time machine work and time travel work, which was Coca-Cola, caused history to change. So when Marty got back to 1980s, he found that it was now the 1950s conception of that decade, with air cars and all invented by Doc Brown and running on Coca-Cola. And Marty discovers that rock and roll was never invented, and he dedicates himself to starting the delayed Cultural Revolution, which sounds very Bill and Ted-like to me. And his dad digs out the newspaper from the day after the dance and sees his son in the picture of the riot from the dance. So way over there. So yeah, that was a mouthful. I hope you got what I was trying to get by that, but I think you did. So according to Marty's supposed age of 47 by 2015, he was born in 1968, which means it was 13 years after his parents met in 1955. So there you go. It took them 13 years to have... Well, I guess they had the 2 other kids as well, but yeah. So now he's going to try and tell him about the future and the fact that he gets gunned down, and again, the way the music builds up, it feels like it's building something so big, but there's a poignancy as well, and the hug. It gets me. It's a touching friendship and relationship, and one of my favorite kind of duos in film history as well. It's brilliant, it really is. You just want to be Marty, and you just want to be friends with Doc. That's the long and short of it, really. So yeah. Apparently on June 2nd, 2008, a massive fire broke out in the backlot, which destroyed 2 archive video vaults and the New York set used for Spider-Man 3, which is right next to the Hill Valley Clock Tower, which was minorly scorched by the time the fire was out, so it wasn't completely damaged. But yeah, I mean, the Nevada desert bomb test was left out, obviously, to kind of keep things within Hill Valley and stuff, but also to reduce the budget as well. You know, by the third draft of the script, the film, the time machine was still a DeLorean, or was now a DeLorean. But in order to send Marty back to the future, they had to take the DeLorean into the atomic bomb test kind of thing. So, you know, the nuclear bomb thing was around for a long time in the process of pre-production, but ultimately they changed it, and I think it works for the better. And then this great scene here is just so brilliantly done and put together, and the tension that builds up is just incredible, you know. Oh, it's just a great shot as well. Just the fact, the shadows on the wall, and the lightning and the wind, and for wide shots, the wind during this kind of storm was created by using a McBride, which is like a huge, like an airplane engine on like a huge cherry picker basically, which is about 50 feet away from the actors and causes like the huge winds. And it was so loud, I love that, it was so loud that all the dialogue by Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd had to be re-recorded afterwards because the wind machine was just too loud. But actually it turns out that it actually had an effect on Michael J. Fox's health, because filming these sequences where he's yelling up at Doc, he actually, I guess just dust and just general crap from the wind machines ended up going into his system, and he was coughing up blood after filming these scenes, which is crazy. And you just want him to tell Doc. You just want Doc to listen and to you know, get it. And now he wants to hear, and he's trying to hear, but he can't. It's so frustrating, and he's trying to get the line hooked back together, and he almost falls. And it's a masterclass in a tense kind of, you know, climax to a film like this. It's so over the top, but so brilliant, man. Love that little slide there. He's very smooth by J. Fox. The DeLorean is just so cool as well. You got to do a slide over it at some point, right? I never noticed that he kind of kisses a wave off to the DeLorean. Right, now he's got to kind of traverse this precarious ledge of the clock tower. You know, edge of the seat stuff, especially as a kid as well. You just like absolutely. Lightning coming in, and start here. Just to make it crystal clear for Marty where he's got to be. It always stressed me out as well when I was a kid, like, yeah, but, you know, it says to start there and he's got a clock telling him when to go, but what if the clock battery runs out? What if he's like half a second or a millisecond off? Then it wouldn't work, you know? But that's what makes it so exciting. That's what makes it this 1 in a million shot that actually, you know, that works. So he's going back, and 10 minutes, he says. So he says 10 minutes all to do it. But when he puts the new time in, the time control panel, the time switches from 1:35 AM to 1:24 AM, which is 11 minutes, just to point out. Now the clock tower itself apparently started running at 8 PM on September 5th, 1885, and that's the date in the caption on the photograph of Doc and Marty from 1885 from the third film. And the lightning strikes the clock tower at 10:04 p.m. on November 12th, 1955, which means that the clock tower operated for exactly 70 years, 2 months, 7 days, 2 hours, and 4 minutes. And why that's interesting, I have no idea. You tell me. And here we have Christopher Lloyd hanging off the clock there. That looked like such a great shot. I don't know how they did it, because obviously it was Christopher Lloyd, but brilliantly done. Must have been a composite or something, or just 2 shots combined into one on a set or something. Or maybe he was just on a harness and was just a badass and just did it for real. I don't know. But yeah, hanging off the clock there, a great tribute to, of course, Harold Lloyd from Safety Last, a 1923 silent film. And you know, I really do think after watching this film now and commenting on it and trying to analyze certain things, I do think that this film would really work as a silent film. It's so well it's told so visually well. I can't think of a good sentence. I'm sorry. My brain's fried. I think we've all experienced his look of just like, it worked. I think we've all experienced that of just electronics. We're trying to bang it to work and it never works, and then you just slam it down and it works, and you're like, oh shit, it worked. And if you haven't had that moment, then you haven't grown up in the 90s, obviously, or the 80s. And more, it just keeps going and going, and it's like, ugh. And of course, you know, it's not going to end with, you know, Marty missing the mark and just having to stay in 1955 forever. You know it's going to happen. You know he's going to get there, but, you know, the film suspends your disbelief enough to get really invested in this drama. Oh, his reactions are brilliant. And apparently Christopher Lloyd, they'd rehearse scenes for the film, and he'd be very quiet, and he would kind of perform the rehearsals at like half speed, you know. He wouldn't really get into it. And the director was like, oh, this isn't going to work, you know. But when the cameras are rolling, Christopher Lloyd would just get right in there. And so he just seems like one of those performers who can do it, you know, on the night kind of thing. But, you know, kind of holds back otherwise. And I like that. I appreciate that. Alright, so he's locked it in. But now it's out on the other end. It's just, it dances on over that line of almost being too much, but it's just perfect for me. And him zip-lining down is brilliant. And the way the music comes in, Alex Silvestri's score, beautiful. So close. He's got to connect the wire. The lightning's about to strike. Boom. It was lucky that it actually struck exactly on the on the minute. Boom! Back to the Future. Imagine if that was the end of the film. Credits. That would be great. And there we go. Brilliant. And, you know, this film doesn't really have that many special effects. I'll talk about that in a bit, actually, about the special effects. That look of wonder and glee that Christopher Lloyd does so well, and this triumphant run down the trail of fire is brilliant. And of course we see the flames lead right to that building. So of course we open in 1985 where it's actually crashed through, and this is now 1985, and you can see obviously a helicopter that indicates we're in the present, but actually you can see the ledge is still broken, which I really appreciate that little detail. Well, they obviously had to remove it for the scene, but obviously it wasn't kind of missed. Now you see the California Raisin logo there. Apparently they wanted to kind of get the California raisins in the film. They wanted to kind of have like a bowl of raisins on the table at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. But Bob Gale was like, well, a bowl of raisins would look like a bowl of dirt, so we're not going to do that. But the California Raisins were like, you know, the California Raisins Company were like, oh, it'll be like, you know, what E.T. did for Reese's Pieces. But the only thing they did was that bench advert. And again, you see that orgy, sex, this little dingy 80s, you know, got a bum there, and, you know, it's down to, you know, 1985, and things are looking a lot more grim, I guess. And I'm pretty sure that they kind of dressed the whole town as the 1950s, and they filmed all that first, and then they kind of like added the dirt and the grime and the seediness, I guess, for the 1985. And then we see the terrorists there, the Libyans. Ties in so well to, you know, again, we got more climax, we got more to come. You know, is he going to be able to save Doc's life as well and pull off the triple whammy? Saves himself, saves his. Well, I guess he saved himself by putting his mum and dad back together, but you know, he also kind of had to get back to the future to fully save himself, and now he wants to save Doc. There we go, Lone Pine Mall. It's quick. Oh, and now we see. I love that where the no comes in as he's just about to say it in the present. But yeah, the Lone Pine Mall, of course, because he knocked down one of the twin pines from Old Man Peabody. Brilliant, lovely little thing there. Nice little Easter egg for fans to pick up on. And it's great to see this from like different angles as well. It's really cool when they do that in films, and there's a lot of that in part 2 where, you know, the climax of the second film is kind of takes place during the end of the first film, which I loved. When I was a kid, Back to the Future Part 3 was my favourite because I love trains and it has a huge train sequence. When I became a teenager, the second was my favourite, but as an adult now, there's just no doubt in my mind this is the best film, without a doubt, and definitely my favourite. And now we get to see what happened to the Libyans. They crashed into this thing here. So yeah. Now apparently, according to Bob Gale, one of the writers, on October 26, 1985, a group of people showed up at this mall, at the Twin Pines Mall location, to see if Marty would arrive in the DeLorean, which is, I think, is just fantastic. As is this reveal here. And the music. It's brilliant. And it's so strange now because this now is no longer the Doc who met Marty in 1985 and became unlikely friends with him. This is the Doc who met Marty in 1955. You know, and earlier when he said, you know, I can't believe I have to wait 30 years to talk to you again, you know. And the poignancy just works really well, I think. And of course, he taped together the letter that Marty wrote that he tore up originally. I always kind of quote this line. Well, I figured, what the hell? It's just so great, you know. It's like, but wait a minute, you said you weren't gonna. Yeah, I thought, what the fuck, you know? Who gives a shit? I just did it. Love that. And now Doc finally gets to go and explore the future and the past, and you know, they didn't think they'd do another film. This was a one and done. This was, you know, it would have been perfect on its own. The sequels are great. I love them. They're not as good as this film. They're not as focused and perfect as this film, I feel. I love them all the same, but for me, the story ends and begins here, and it could have begin here. Well, it doesn't end and begin here. I just mean that this film tells a story, it comes to a conclusion, and the ending is more of a joke than anything else. It doesn't need to be followed up on. The fact that it was is great, you know, but I guess they saved a lot of money just showing the transition off screen with the flash. But yeah. And now Marty gets to see that everything has changed based on the fact that his dad kind of grew a set, basically. Pepsi, ding. And now we're kind of, again, mirroring the beginning of the film. Marty's in the exact same position. Well, pretty much the same position. And you kind of think like, well, has it been a dream? You know? And, of course, that would be a horrible ending. And that's the song from the end playing very lightly on the radio, the Back in Time by Huey Lewis and the News. Now, apparently, Crispin Glover really did not like the end of this film because, of course, you see now that George McFly is a much different man. He's successful. Again, you see the home is a very nice home. It's not a kind of, you know, dingy kind of TV dinner kind of home. And, you know, Dave's doing well. He's in a suit. So's the sister. I forget her name now. And they look completely different, you know. I mean, Dave McFly was working in Burger King. Now he's got a suit on, and you know, now Marty's the odd one out in a way. And so the family's so successful, and Crispin Glover believed that the film's message here is that, you know, you know, not necessarily if you stand up for yourself, then you'll be more successful, but the fact that if you are successful and you make money and you live a wealthy life, that means that that's what you should try and achieve. He believes that this is kind of, you know, a wrong message. He's quoted as saying he thinks it's an evil message, that having money and wealth is what happy ending is supposed to be. To a degree, I kind of see his point, but at the same time, I think he needs to kind of step back and realize this is a film. It's a fun film, you know. It's not really delivering a message that profound, I think, or that kind of deep-seated in anything serious. And of course, we get the reveal that the Jeep that Marty was eyeing, oh no, the car, of course, is fine, but also we also get to see the Jeep as well. And it's just a great twist that Biff is just finishing up the second coat. And again, it's just a fun thing for the film to see that Biff is now reduced to this, you know, lackey for George, because George stood up to him and stuff. And you know, I definitely wouldn't say that you need to kind of start fighting bullies and stuff and punching them in the face to kind of, you know, turn your life around or anything. But again, this is a film, you shouldn't really read into it too much. But I do think you should read into it with this, where Biff is so like, hey Marty, he's like such a little, you know, such a suck up, you know, such a brown noser for George now, which is hilarious. But yeah, we get to see that George finished a sci-fi book, you know, with his sci-fi stories and stuff and things like that. And just that line, you know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And the fact that Marty said that to George, and now George is saying it to his son, and it's the cyclical nature of this film. And there he goes, the Jeep that he finds. And I love the bit where Jennifer turns up and Marty's like, oh, I feel like I haven't, you know, she says, it's like you haven't seen me for I forgot what she actually says exactly. Let's have a look. There you go. You're acting like you haven't seen me in a week. And he's like, I haven't, you know. Yeah. I always think of Jennifer a lot of this film, but she's probably only in it for like 5 minutes, really. Such a small character, but obviously her part is much more expanded in the second and third film. But she was replaced by Elizabeth Shue. And I always thought, like, oh, why didn't she come back for the second film, the third film? Apparently the reason is that Claudie Wells' mother was diagnosed with cancer, and so she decided not to do the film, which is totally fair enough. Back to the Future. This is just a great little button to the whole film, you know. There's another adventure in that there's going to be more, you know, almost as if the adventure's never going to end for Marty in a way, you know, and with Doc, and there's always stuff to do kind of thing. And without the idea of a sequel, just the fact that, you know, there is a future to it in a way, you know, and it's just funny. I mean, the line, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. Apparently, at some point in the film, or at some point in the series, Marty and Jennifer say that Doc was the guy who said it, you know, but Doc actually never says the line in the entire series. Classic line. We're going, we don't need roads. And it's like, holy shit, the DeLorean is flying. What the fuck? Where's this going? Credits. Done. Back in time. And that is Back to the Future. Thank you for listening. I hope this was enjoyable. I don't know. I feel like I was a bit too stiff. I don't know. Maybe just talking about too much trivia. But I tried to put some personal stories in there as well. And again, Crispin Glover has claimed to have only seen the film once, shortly after its release, whereas Christopher Lloyd said that if he occasionally stumbles across it on, you know, while he's channel surfing, he'll often sit and watch it, and I like that. I like the idea of Christopher Lloyd just sitting down and watching Back to the Future, for no other reason, just in the fact that he can. Now, from the day that this film finished filming, it was released 9.5 weeks later, which is a really short lead time for a major movie release. Obviously, they were kind of shot back with the, you know, the month they filmed with Eric Stoltz. But yeah, I found that quite incredible that it was finished so soon before it was released. To Be Continued was added at the end of this on the VHS release of Back to the Future, but was removed from the subsequent DVD release in 2002 and the Blu-ray. The cliffhanger ending of the film was not actually originally intended to set up a sequel. As I said, it was just one last joke, really, and it was admitted by the writers that had they originally intended to follow with 2 sequels, the ending would not have had Jennifer get in the car, which is why she's almost immediately knocked out in the beginning of Back to the Future Part 2. But it's great to see that scene from the end at the beginning of Part 2. It's a great kind of lead-in for the next film. And Christopher Lloyd stated he always wanted to do one more film in which Marty and Doc went back to ancient Rome, which I think would be so wild. But I don't know. I would have been game for it if they did it back in the early 90s after the 3rd film. But I definitely don't want to see another one now. And Huey Lewis, who did the song, Power of Love and Back in Time, he was asked by Rob Zemeckis and Bob Gale to write a song for the film. They weren't thrilled with the first song he brought back to them. They explained what they were hoping for, so he came back with Power of Love, and then they told him he needed one more song. So after viewing the film for the first time, he got the inspiration to come up with Back in Time. The film's timeline takes place between October 25th to 26th, 1985, and from November 5th, 1955 to November 12th, 1955. In the entire Back to the Future trilogy, the present date is October 26th, 1985. 2015 is the future, 1885 and 1955 are the past. Exactly 25 years later, on October 26th, 2010, the entire Back to the Future trilogy was released on Blu-ray and a 25th anniversary edition, which is what I'm currently watching this on. I'm trying to cram all the trivia out at the end. During a Today Show cast reunion, Michael J. Fox said that strangers still call him McFly constantly. He said the most remarkable instance was when he was in a remote jungle in the South Asian country Bhutan, located between China and India in the eastern Himalayas. A group of Buddhist monks passed him, and one of them looked at Fox and said, "Marty McFly." That is pretty awesome. And now we just listen to the awesome score as the film ends from Alan Silvestri, which, again, one of my favourite scores. It's so epic and operatic and fits the fun tone, but big, larger than life tone of the film, and his orchestra for the film was actually the largest ever assembled at the time, 85 musicians. So yeah, and the special effects, there are only, I think, a few special effects shots in the film, really. Only 32 special effects shots, whereas, films these days have like 2,000, 3,000 special effects shots, which is crazy. Anyway, that was it. Back to the Future. I hope you enjoyed. I tried my best. A few distractions, but I really enjoyed doing this. It was quite fun. And now we have the Amblin Entertainment logo with the ET shots. So yeah, leave comments down below, or just let me know personally what you thought, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so you've probably figured out now that there's quite a bit left on this file, or however you're listening to this, and that's because this is a few days after I recorded that commentary track, and I wanted to add a little kind of extra on the end of it. So if you're happy with what you listen to, or you're not happy with what you listen to and you want to stop now, that's fine. What we're going to do now, and this is sadly only going to apply to people who have the Blu-ray copy of Back to the Future, or you can just listen to this as a podcast. You may be doing that already and not watching it with the film in the first place. The point is, there are a few more things I want to talk about, and I realized afterwards, I wish I'd covered that. I had 2 hours and I didn't cover that. How did I miss it? So what we're going to do, if you have the Blu-ray up now on the menu, or if you haven't got it, get it up and pause this and come back to it. We're going to go down to extras, click on extras, and then we're going to go down to archival featurettes, which is 4 or 5 features down. You click on that, take you to another tab. There's 3 things here, and we're going to click on the making of Back to the Future, which is a making of from around the time of the film's release. And just get your Blu-ray remote ready. 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so we've selected that, and just for the record, how awful is it that Universal always have the same Blu-ray menus with that kind of thing on the left? I mean, the Back to the Future one's cool. They did kind of 3D effect with the DeLorean and stuff, but ultimately I just didn't really love the fact that every Universal Blu-ray just has a standard like banner on the left for all the special features. Anyway, so what I want to talk about was how I kind of my kind of history with collecting this film as far as home media is concerned and things like that. When I first was introduced to the film, it was through my nan, as I mentioned in the commentary, but also my granddad. My granddad used to record loads of films from the TV, and when he would record them, he would put them onto VHS tapes, but like he would put them in these black plastic cases that had like textured material on the outside, kind of like it just like a kind of like a cool, classy black case, but there was like a white band in the middle, the center of the VHS, maybe about a third of the actual cover, and he would write there, you know, what films were on the tape and what number the tape was. So he had this huge collection. I think he had about 200 videotapes, and they were literally laid out like a library, like just on these nice wooden shelves across the whole living room, about half the height of the room, and you could go and pick out and see what films were on there, and you know, from the text, and then you could go and pop it in and have a look. And he had this big book as well where he indexed everything, so you could look through all the numbers and see what films that he had. And I always used to do that when I had dinner, you know, to see what film I'd watch after dinner when I stayed over my nan's at the weekend. And it was usually invariably Back to the Future. He had like official tapes as well. He wasn't like a complete pirate or anything, but he had he just liked, I guess, taping films and keeping them for future reference. And of course he got rid of most of them. I have a few of them, the original ones, still in my cupboard somewhere back home. But anyway, that's how I first saw Back to the Future. Loved it. And when kind of my birthday was coming up, I guess I don't know how old I would have been. I think it was when I was still living in England. I would go back and forth to Wales over like the school holidays. I'm pretty sure that what happened was my nan was like, right, what do you want for your birthday? And I looked through a catalogue and I found that there was this VHS box set of Back to the Future, and it had it was in a kind of like a cardboard slipcase. Inside you had the 4 tapes in card. You know, this kind of, I mean, you have the plastic VHS boxes, you know, like the proper official ones, and then a lot of times in America it would just be like a kind of a 3-sided, well, I guess 4-sided, like cardboard sleeve, and you kind of, the VHS pops out from the bottom, that kind of thing. The Star Wars special edition tapes are housed like that as well, and in the UK sometimes you get special editions that were kind of packaged like that, and that's what the Back to the Future one was. And it was 4 tapes, and when you lined them up they made the back of the DeLorean, and it looked awesome. So I was like, oh God, please get that, please get that. My nan was like, oh, I don't know, that's a bit expensive. Now she was kind of just she was going to get it for me, but she was just kind of keeping me in suspense, I think, about whether I'd get it or not. And when I got it, I was so happy, so excited to own all 3 films. As I mentioned before, the third one was my favorite as a kid. The second would go on to be my favorite, and then of course now as an adult, the first one's my favorite. But I think I actually ended up breaking the third movie because I watched it that much, and I was gutted. I was devastated about it. And the 4th tape was the making of Back to the Future. I don't know if it's on any of these Blu-rays, but it wasn't on the DVD set, I don't believe. And it was this guy who was just kind of like telling you all behind the scenes stories and stuff, and then he ended it with saying, will there be a Back to the Future Part 4? Well, only time will tell, or something like that, I don't know. So yeah, that was really cool to have like a 4th tape, and I would sometimes try and pretend to my friends who would come over that, oh look, I've got Back to the Future 4, no one's seen it yet, and they would see the box set and they'd be like, holy what, you know. And then of course I'd say, oh no, I'm only kidding, but oh, you get to see them lighting the fire tracks there, very cool. Yeah, so that was my first proper owned version of Back to the Future, and it was one of my most prized parts of my collection. I wonder if I've still got it actually. I would never have got rid of it, so it must be somewhere. Maybe I'll have to find it one day. Anyway, in 2002, it was announced that it was coming out on DVD, and I was so excited. I mean, I got onto the DVD bandwagon around 2000, bought a few from like Blockbuster pre-owned. I think the first couple of DVDs I had were Castaway, starring Tom Hanks, the original Fast and the Furious film, Artificial Intelligence, AI. And I would buy and sell them and stuff, and yeah, and then I started getting really into them when like the Harry Potter films came out and Lord of the Rings came out. 2002, I was really collecting DVDs, well, as much as I could. How old would I have been then? About 14 years old. But Back to the Future's coming out, and I had to have it when it came out. Like, I was following its release. I didn't do it with any other DVD, but this one was like a big deal, you know. And it was back in the day where like something going on DVD was huge, you know. I remember like Indiana Jones didn't come out on DVD for ages, and it was such a everyone wanted that set on DVD, and when it came out it was massive, you know. And the same thing for Star Wars in 2004, and Back to the Future was 2002. And remember when it came out, my mum worked in a place called Woolworths, which is like a a store in the UK, if you're not from the UK, that kind of sold films, but only like that was a very small part of the store. There'd be all sorts of things like cooking, you know, things to cook with, toys for kids, notepads, books, things like that for school, and books, all sorts of things. A very general thing. It's a store that's closed down now, Woolworths, and my mum worked there at the time, and so she got it for me, and kind of held a copy back, and I got it, and it was just like, it's such a great set as well. It's got a nice kind of out slip cover on the outside, and then you open it up and it folds out, and there's artwork and all the discs, and it was just like, oh. And back then as well, when I'd only have maybe like 20 DVDs in my collection, I would watch every special feature, every commentary. You know, I'm such a big fan of special features and commentaries and things like that, but these days I just don't have the time. There's so many films I own, so many special features, there's just no time to do it. I think, oh, should I watch a commentary of this when I could be watching a whole other film I've never seen before? That's my reasoning now, whereas back then it was just like, I want to watch Back to the Future again and again and again, and I watch all the special features again and again and again, so it was very different back then, but I watched everything on all those discs religiously. I was a bit disappointed that they didn't have an audio commentary for Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3, but I still love the commentary for the first film, and I'm pretty sure the DVDs in America got all 3 commentaries, so I was happy that the Blu-ray set had all the commentaries, even though I've never listened to them still. I bought this Blu-ray set like 4 years ago, and yeah, so this Blu-ray set that we're watching this thing on now, if you're following along with me, came out in 2010, and you know, when it came on Blu-ray, I was not a Blu-ray fan at all. I was still very much of the there's no real difference. There's no real difference on Blu-ray. I'm not gonna. There's no chance, you know. And even my uncle had Blu-rays when he got a PS3, and he was like, "Listen to the sound on this," and I'm like, "It just sounds loud to me." You know, not selling me at all. And then I guess it was around when I started my YouTube channel that I got a Blu-ray player, and for wrestling stuff, and then I realized that I could get films, and then I slowly began to realize how much better films looked, and then it got to the point where it was very hard for me to watch a DVD, and I'm here now, a proud Blu-ray snob. You know, I definitely look down on DVDs now and people who buy them, which is horrible, but you know, I always want the highest quality. But in 2010, when the Back to the Future Blu-ray came out, I heard that they would put in new documentaries out, and I was like, oh my god, you know, of course the 25th anniversary, you know, they're doing new documentaries, but I don't have a Blu-ray, and you know, they're not doing it for the DVD, so how am I going to see these new documentaries? So I actually downloaded the new Blu-ray documentaries and watched them through, I think, my Xbox 360 at the time, and loved all the new documentaries they put out on there and stuff, and of course I don't feel too bad about downloading that stuff now, and of course I went on to buy the Blu-ray happily. So yeah, I got the Blu-ray. I think it was Christmas 2011. I had a very good payday that month. Worked a lot of overtime over Christmas, and so I went to Blockbuster and I thought, you know, I'm going to get some of the stuff that is like essential owning, you know, essential films to have in your Blu-ray collection that, you know, I should really have had by now. I've been collecting for about 6 months, so I went out and I got Back to the Future. I got the Alien Anthology set and the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition Blu-ray set. In fact, the girl behind the counter at Blockbusters, I said, yeah, I'm looking for the Lord of the Rings box set, and she said, which one? And I said, oh, the extended one, and she was like, oh, so the proper one then, good. You know? Which is kind of funny. But yeah, I think it was all in one day. I went there once, and then I came back later on and decided, screw it, I'm going to get these films that I want. You know, they'll be a Christmas present to myself. So went home with the Back to the Future, Alien, and Lord of the Rings collections. But Back to the Future, the Blu-ray set is fantastic. You know, so many special features. I love that they've ported over these old archival featurettes and things like that, as well as all the new stuff, the commentaries, the outtakes, the deleted scenes. There's so much great stuff on there. Check it out if you haven't already. I know I haven't gone through everything, to be honest. I mean, it's been a while since I've done all the DVD documentaries. Even the DVD menus I loved. I thought they were awesome, you know. I mean, DVD was still quite something of a novelty back then, and so before it became the absolute norm, I think, for me anyway. I mean, 2002, it'd been out for years, but I mean, you know, I didn't own that many, so every time I owned one, it would be like a special occasion, and Back to the Future was an extra special occasion. So yeah, it was great to see Back to the Future in better quality and have all the special features and things like that. But the Blu-ray set is special. I love the packaging for that as well, and the fact that you can get the Back to the Future trilogy on Blu-ray for like 10 quid now is absolutely like nuts. You know, it's just it blows my mind. But it's like, if anyone doesn't have it, if you don't have it, and you're listening to this without watching the Blu-ray right now, go out and just buy it. It's a no-brainer, an absolute essential addition to any collection. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, my kind of history of owning the films. And I'm sure if they get upgraded to 4K, and in about 5 years' time, when I might have a TV that could be, that would make use of 4K, then I'd probably upgrade it again, because they're that good and they're worth it. And I think it definitely gets to a point where oh, there you go, you saw the creation of putting the 1955 to 1985 for the town square of Hill Valley and stuff. That's cool. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, I think it's worth upgrading. Definitely, but I want, there's only so many like special features they can kind of hold back on and put out for Blu-rays and stuff. So I think as far as bonus content, we've pretty much seen all the good stuff, and anything else will just kind of be a bit arbitrary, I think. But then again, you're listening to me talk about the bloody film. It's one of those films that is just timeless, and yeah, that's another thing I want to talk about actually. Is that it really is a timeless film that's out of its own time. But yeah, I mean, you can just watch it. I think it can live on forever, to be honest. As long as we're around, as long as films are around, I think people can watch it. They can identify with it, and they can be excited by it and thrilled by it and charmed by it. And yeah, it'll have a great legacy, I think. And we're now in its 30th year. It came out in 1985. We're now in 2015. Of course, the year that Marty and Doc and Jennifer traveled forward to in Back to the Future Part 2. Of course, we've got no hoverboards or flying cars yet, but I think that they're trying to work on it. I think there was a video recently of someone who had, I think it was Tony Hawk, riding a hoverboard, and it was really just a board that kind of hovered like about like a half an inch off the ground or something. But it's fun to see people do those kinds of things. And again, just shows that it's so much a part of the conscience of pop culture, really. These films, and they have never really lost their relevance in the world of geekdom and fandom, and there's always going to be people who are diehard fans of this, and that's awesome. I've got my poster signed by Christopher Lloyd and Leo Thompson. I really want to go to London Film and Comic Con this year, to go back after 4 years, because they're doing another Back to the Future themed kind of series of guests, including Leo Thompson, Christopher Lloyd, but also Michael J. Fox. And I was like, I have to do this, because that was the dream for me. The dream for me was to get Michael J. Fox, Leo Thompson, Christopher Lloyd to sign that poster. I got 2 out of 3. If I could have got Crispin Glover, that would have been even more amazing, because I'm a big fan of him in this film. But it's one of those things that I don't expect that to happen. And of course, Thomas F. Wilson, but he doesn't really sign Back to the Future stuff anymore. But Michael J. Fox, I think, would have just been fantastic and just capped it off. But I looked at the prices, and oh my god, they are charging like £500, I think £600 to meet Michael J. Fox and get one autograph from him. Now I know he's got Parkinson's, and they must have paid him a small fortune to actually come over to London to do this, because he doesn't do any conventions like London Film and Comic Con. I think it might be his first UK convention, at least in many years. It's a huge deal. But yeah, obviously they need to make their money back somehow, and there are people who are paying it. I mean, when it was announced that you can meet him and it's going to be a few £100 or like £500, there were fans who were like, "Cool, I just bought 2," and it's like, gee, you just spent over £1,000 on that, Some things aren't quite worth that amount of money, I think. Maybe if I was loaded, but I'm not, so that's a shame. But either way, I have a great experience meeting Leo Thompson, Christopher Lloyd, especially Christopher Lloyd, and I'll never forget that. But alright, this is the end of the little archival featurette, and I think I've about waffled on and covered all the bases I wanted to on the last few things. I was so pushed for time while I was doing the commentary, but at the same time I felt like there were a few pauses where I didn't know what to say, but I hope you enjoyed it all together anyway. Thank you very much for listening, and if you would like to hear me do another audio commentary on a film like this, then definitely leave me feedback, definitely get in touch with me, leave a comment on the video, however you listen to this. You can get a message out to me and let me know what you thought of this, and I'd definitely be up for doing another one if people enjoyed it, if not, then that's okay. But this is definitely one of the best ones to do it for, because again, one of my absolute favourite films of all time, and yeah, always a blast watching it. Thanks for listening.